Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and today I wanted to teach you a little bit about fractional currency. So if you didn't know, the US used to make banknotes that were actually the size of what we would call small change, and it actually came in some pretty odd denominations. During the Civil War, the US produced fewer and fewer coins, and not a lot of people had coins. The banks didn't have coins, and so there was a shortage of change. And so what the US Mint did is they produced fractional currency starting in 1862 and 1863 during the Civil War. They created denominations of 5 cent, 10 cent, 25 cent, and 50 cent notes. And these banknotes, here's just a couple of quick examples. The very first issues were called postage notes because this design was actually looked just like the postage at the time, and they would take them, and so this had a 5 cent piece on it, and this one has five 5 cent pieces on it, so it was a 25 cent note. Now, these notes had different designs on them, and there was 5 different issues. So from 1862 to 1863 was the first issues. 1863 to 1867, they made 5 cent, 10 cent, 25 cent, and 50 cent. The third issue from 1864 to 1869 produced one of the strangest notes in U.S. history, and that's the 3 cent note. So those years they made the 5, 10, 25, and 50 cent along with the 3 cent note. The fourth issue, they decided to try something completely different, and they did from 1869 to 1875. They made a 10 cent, a 15 cent, a 25 cent, and a 50 cent. So if you thought 3 cents were strange, you should see the 15 cent note, which was a beautiful note, by the way. It's a very popular note because it's such an odd denomination. There's lots of people who just collect the 3 cent and 15 cent notes just as oddities. The final time that they made this fractional currency was from 1874 through 1876. And that year they made 10 cent, 25 cent, and 50 cent notes. And so there's some really interesting things about the fractional currency. First of all, there are some issues that are actually hand signed. Now, most of them, the signature is printed on there, but there are some that are actually hand signed by General Spinner, who was the treasurer at the time under Lincoln. And what's also fascinating is that you have these pieces of currency that had people on them that were actually living people, which is something that we don't really do today. There are real popular series that were after Lincoln died. Lincoln was on a note. But it's really an interesting series. And if you want to learn a very small amount of US currency, and by small amount, I mean a very, really broad amount, you can get the Friedberg book on paper money. What I mean by small amount is that this will cover colonial notes and it'll cover US notes, and then it has a section on the fractional notes. And the section on the fractional notes, or any of the sections, is a good cursory overview. So this book actually has all US currency produced in it. But if you want a more in-depth, you can get a book like this Kravitz book, which is an entire book on just fractional currency. And so this is a pretty good book to learn more in depth. Now, as is the case with many guides, the pricing is not really exact to the marketplace, but it'll give you an idea because for each section, each note produced, there was like sub varieties that had different markings on them. And so if you find yourself really fascinated with fractional currency, you can go more in depth with a book like this. One of the things that I'll add to the whole fractional currency subset is that we didn't see any fractional currency again in the U.S. until we got into another wartime, and you started seeing what's known as military payment certificates, and these were smaller fractional notes that were used by our military, but they were not designed to circulate in the general population. Fractional currency from the 1860s through the 1870s actually circulated as currency to make up for the shortage of specie, that is metal coins. So anyway, that is a quick history of fractional currency, and it's a really fun area to collect. If you haven't looked into it, you should consider just looking into it, even if it's just to buy one or two notes. that may be the odd notes, the 3 cent or the 15 cent, or the other popular note, of course, is the Abraham Lincoln note. So thanks for watching. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.